jiu-jitsu, and combat sports. Here we go. Good afternoon, it's KHEA. My name's Gardy. This is Kickstart, and I got Kyle Todrank here in studio. What's up, Kyle? How are you doing?
I'm doing real good, man. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
I'm excited that you're here. So if somebody hasn't had the opportunity to meet you before, can you kind of, I guess, say what you're doing right now, and then we'll get into your background and how you ended up here in Texas?
Absolutely. So I'm an MMA fighter fighting out of Houston, Texas. I'm originally from Evansville, Indiana. I had a pretty seasoned college wrestling career, and I'm in the beginning transitions of mixed martial arts and training at a pretty high-level gym.
Yeah, so after you finished your collegiate career, were you certain that you were going to go into MMA and pursue that?
Yeah, so that's actually the reason that I started wrestling in 7th and 8th grade. When I was 11, I saw Chuck Liddell versus Rampage Jackson 2, and I knew like right away I wanted to do that. I wanted to be on that level and on that stage. And so the first thing they said was that Chuck Liddell wrestled in California, and I was like, I guess I need to get that started.
So you did it. And so at your school, you were in school in Indiana?
I was actually in Illinois at the time, and I began my career in Mattoon, Illinois.
Okay. And so what grade were you in?
So actually, my first year wrestling was 7th grade. I had one match. My very first match, I broke my arm. That kept me out until postseason. I came back for postseason. I did like 6 matches. And then, so 8th grade was my first full wrestling career.
Okay.
Not a good start to my wrestling career.
Yeah. Whenever it's like an injury at the beginning, it's like, is this what's going to happen all the time?
Yeah.
But when you're young, I feel like you bounce back. And you're still pretty young. How old are you now?
I'm 24 right now.
24,
Yeah,
okay.
old, yeah.
No, that's not old. Okay, so before we get into the history and how you got here, you were scheduled to compete in your first MMA match. When?
So I did do a smoker like December 15th, but yeah, this was my scheduled amateur debut. I was going against Jarrett Ingram, who was another like early amateur. I think he was a high school wrestler as well, but that the winter storm thing postponed it, and then he didn't want to fight this next weekend when they tried to reschedule it, which I kind of understand because people don't have power and water and things like that, so it's hard to train and maintain weight. I was able to because I'm surrounded by high-level people, and I've been doing this a long time, but I understand that other people probably weren't able to.
What gyms do you train at?
Texas Strike Academy with Joel, and then and I know you guys know Joel, he's the man. And then also War Training Center in Houston, and that's Coach Jeremy and Coach Copley, and that we have also a stable of fighters. It's a great gym. Yeah,
and I'll see some of the fighters that come out of there, and they're always top level, the best of the best here in Houston. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We got Trevin, UFC, Charlie, UFC. I mean, we have a number of guys that pop in and out, Ultimate Fighter winners, things like that. It's a high level gym. In my opinion, it's the best in Houston, and we're only on the rise. We got a lot of guys in the ranks coming up and things like that. The thing I love most about it is that everyone in the gym is kind of like their own specialist, right? Charlie's like been doing karate, TKD since he was a little kid. So the stuff that guy can do is insane. And then a couple high-level wrestlers, a couple high-level boxers, and we all like exchange knowledge. It's a very good environment for learning.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned Trevin Giles. He's a full-time police officer.
Yes, sir.
And then he trains and just competes in the UFC.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing because most guys who are competing in the UFC or even a professional, that's like everything that they do. I wonder, that has to be an interesting balance.
Yeah, I think HPD does a good job working with Trevin from what I hear. So he's able, when it's fight camp, he works that out in advance, and he's able to go. But I got a lot of respect for Trevin because I know like the reason he does that is to make a difference in the community and things like that. So he's doing it for all the right reasons, and he's going to continue doing it for all the right reasons. And you can't ask for more than that. And that dude really is like a leader in the gym. He's a funny guy and a good dude to be around, and he'll be at the top very soon. I know that.
So you wrestled in college. How did you end up, I guess, even having that opportunity? You started at a young age, and I assume you wrestled all high school, all 4 years?
Oh, yeah. So how I got to Purdue, I was actually in Indiana, and there's a program it's like the 21st Century Scholar program, and then I'm forgetting the one I was, but then there's a level below that, and it enables you to go to school very cheap in Indiana if you lived in state for a while. And I did that, and so it was Purdue or Indiana, and I actually committed to Indiana University first, and then decommitted and went to Purdue.
Why? Why did that happen?
So at the time, Purdue had won like 6 or 7 straight in the Indiana-Purdue duel, and now it's actually 11 straight. It's been like 5,000 days since Indiana's beat Purdue.
No. Yeah,
really bad. But at the time, it was like 6 straight, and guy who's still I talk to this day, Zach Tonelli, he was the assistant coach at the time, head coach of Columbia now, and he sat me down. He was like, "Hey, we've beat them 6 times in a row.
Yeah.
Why would you want to go with the losers?" And I was like, "Oh, he's right." And so yeah, he talked me into it.
That's still the deal, yeah.
Yeah. They're still on top of that state for sure.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier before we went on air, you redshirted your freshman year.
Yeah, that's pretty common in the sport of wrestling. And I was behind couple studs at the time, so it just made sense to take a year to lift, get stronger, get bigger. And I don't think there was another freshman that didn't redshirt that year. So it's pretty common as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you wrestled and you went to school at Purdue. What was that experience like? I mean, Purdue. You hear Purdue University, that's a big deal. You know, it just seems it's a great college.
Yeah, it was definitely prestigious grade-wise.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a struggle for me at times. Excuse me. But I got it figured out. You know, I didn't necessarily prepare myself the best in high school to transition grade-wise into that, but I figured it out. They offered free tutors for student athletes and things like that. I definitely took advantage of that. Big help to me. The wrestling-wise was a step up as well, because when you're in high school, like if you're at a high level, ranked in the country, whatever, you're the man in your room. And then you go to college, you go to a school like Purdue in the Big Ten, everyone was the man in their room. And so it's a dogfight for scholarship money, for spots. And so that was a different feel as well. I loved it, though, because I was always pushed every day in practice.
Mm-hmm. That jump has to seem like it's a pretty big jump. And then you ended up, so you wrestled at Purdue, and then you decided to transfer. What happened there?
Yeah, just like I said, I went there for Coach Tonelli. He had left, and it was time to move on and kind of get a fresh start and everything. And so, yeah, I ended up at Buffalo. I was briefly a team captain, and, you know, did my thing out there, had a couple good matches and moved on. Yeah,
and we talked about this once before. Whenever I went to Texas Striking and you were there training, there was a YouTube video that I saw, and it's kind of a big deal. What was that match, and why was it such a big deal?
Yeah, so I was a 141 pounder, and my coach texted me, and he said, "You're going in against Nolf." And for those of you who don't follow college wrestling or anything, Jason Nolf was a 4-time national finalist, possibly one of the best 157 pounders ever, if I'm being honest. And yeah, I went out there, I got a reversal on him, and I did a little dance. And the clip blew up way bigger than I expected it to or anything like that. But what a lot of people don't talk about with that clip, but it did not end well. He kind of got me after that. But yeah, for those of you people who don't really follow wrestling, it was the same weekend as the Iowa-Oklahoma State duel, which is like Alabama, LSU or something like that. It was the biggest duel. And then that Monday, the homepage of Flow was me and him, and it was the Big Ten match of the week that same week. And so that level of popularity, it was cool to experience that. And I didn't get many opportunities in college because of various reasons to be on a big spotlight, and that kind of reminded me who I am and what I'm capable of.
Yeah. Was that something that you carried into multiple matches, or was that just something at that opportunity? You got that reversal and you just hey, I did do a dance and a little bit of swag or something?
So yeah, when I wrestle, I do talk a little bit of smack, and
yeah.
I do do flashy stuff, and it's never really anything with my opponent. It's more like a thing that I like to do and that I've always done. I guess a part of me. And then I wasn't gonna do it in that match because I was like, oh, it's his senior night and everything
Respect,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Nice
respect. And then like if you watch like little subtle things and stuff like that, he kind of pushes me and I kind of push him back, and then he jumps at me like, and I hear some people in the crowd laugh, and I didn't like that, so I held my leg out at him. And then when I finally got my opportunity, I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna get you back now.
Yeah. Okay, so here's something else that people, if you don't know, so Ethan is your brother, Ethan Todrank. He helped us here at the radio for years, and him and your mom and your sister and your brother and I, that they came over to Texas City, and there was some stuff that brought him here, like school.
Yeah.
And so that's whenever you were in college, and we always heard my brother wrestles at Buffalo, and we're like, oh, that's cool, that's cool. So I'm guessing, is that the reason you would come and visit at times?
Yeah, and that's actually how I ended up at War as well. My mom was finishing up college when I was in college as well, and she went to USI, which is a school in Evansville where I'm from. Time to go to med school. This area has some of the best med schools and stuff like that in the country, and she's a registered dietitian, which helps me with my weight cuts and stuff like that a lot. But yeah, she was here finishing up school. One of the kids from that video, actually, one of the kids at the club commented and was like, man, that was awesome. I'm going to try and do that on the #1 kid in the country. And he wrestled him the next day. And he hit me up. I clicked on his profile because I was going to follow him. I was following a lot of people back there were being positive and stuff with that. And it said wrestler out of Houston. And I was like, hey, bro, like, would your coaches want to do like a camp or something with me? The wrestling coach, Mike Moore, brought me in for like a little mini camp that weekend. I came in, did jiu-jitsu with Jeremy Copley. I knew they were high-level guys, and the rest is history. I've been there ever since.
Yeah, and they were located it's on the north side of Houston, right? Yeah,
it's North Eldridge Parkway now. We just got a new facility, and it is huge. We have a cage, jiu-jitsu mat, and wrestling mat, so all the space you can need.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you do some training over here with Joel at Texas Striking. How'd you get hooked up with him?
So that was actually through Jeremy. I was living down here at the time with my older brother Ryan, and he said, hey, man, the days you're not here, you should go train with this guy, real high-level boxing guy, real high-level MMA coach. He'll get you up for sure. And I went in, and very first session, we, like, clicked. Like, our pad work and everything was, like, on point. I was like, yeah, I know I want to work with this guy. And so now I moved up to where War is, and I drive all the way down here just to work with him.
Yeah. So, you're on the north side now, and you still come back this way. And I know he was in Lamarck and had been for years. And then here recently, I know there's a plan for another gym, but he's still working and training, right?
Oh yeah. So we're at Gator Boxing right now, and that's where we trade out of, like Mondays, Tuesdays, and then he does, I think, one-on-ones as well throughout the week. But yeah, that's in the works. COVID kind of, I guess, put a little halt to some of the plans we had, but Joel is one of the best coaches around. He has some great up-and-coming fighters. We're going to get that worked out very soon.
Yeah. Joel, you talk to him, and he's almost like soft-mannered. He can be very humble guy. He's doesn't seem to like the spotlight, but he will work his brains out. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For anybody.
That guy, anytime I text him, any time of the morning, we'll get in and we'll get work. He watches film over and over. When he watches that film, he brings all these game plans, ideas, implements them into pad work, implements them into sparring, like the stuff that he does and the way he thinks about boxing. There's only one way to get that, and that's being like a third-generation boxing guy, and so he's done it since he was like 5, and the level of work he still puts in. A lot of people get burnt out and everything. The level of work he still puts in is second to none.
Yeah, I see, Josh Altum from Texas City, he trains with him, and he talks about, hey, starting in the garage and how they both kind of have their careers, and Josh is doing some really, he looks like he's on way. He was like, I'm starting camp, and he's like, looks like he's cut already. He's ready, huh?
And I sparred with him the other day, and it was his first sparring session in forever, and the dude he knows how to fight. He knows what he's capable of, and he came in, it felt like it was like week 4 of camp. He was hitting hard and not even really breathing too hard. So, but the thing is, there's like that saying, if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. Anytime Josh is able to, he's training. Like, he's had just some injury stuff, but anytime he can, he is. And so it makes it a very easy transition back.
Yeah. For Josh, he hasn't released any fight news yet, right?
I don't believe they've made any announcements yet, but it's in the works for soon.
Yeah. I saw him post actually on Facebook or social media, Instagram, somewhere yesterday saying, hey, starting camp.
Yeah.
News coming soon.
Yeah.
Whenever the pen hits the paper, maybe it has already.
I hope so.
Yeah, and then they'll get that out there.
The thing I would say about Josh is he's really such a high level fighter. He's such a bad fight for anybody because his wrestling's great, his jiu-jitsu's great, his stand-up's great. So I wouldn't doubt if he does have people not want to fight him. But yeah, I hope that gets done soon.
Well, he even put a thing out there. Said if you're at 155,
let me know.
Yeah, you get out the way, or you're gonna get ran through. So always rooting for the local guys.
Super glue.
Yeah, super glue, Altum. For you, we talked about this earlier. A lot of the gyms in Texas weren't able to have electricity, water. Some of these guys, probably weren't able to train. How were you able to or were you able to continue training?
Yeah. So there's a couple days I snuck into the gym, hopped the gate, couple days we did stuff like that. But mainly my roommate, he's a heavyweight fighter. He's a Greco national champ, 2-time college Greco All-American. Dude's an absolute beast. We're always pushing each other and stuff like that. So we would hold mitts for each other, get a lift in our workout room, things like that. But, yeah, the only day off that we took was Sunday, which is our usual rest and stretch day anyways. So, yeah, I didn't actually miss a day of training. And like we talked about earlier, living in Buffalo where it snows all the time, you learn how to deal with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you posted a picture on social media and you got another stripe on your belt, and you said it only took 3 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so I started jiu-jitsu my sophomore year at Purdue, and there was a coach there, Coach Mo. He's fantastic. He was John Fitch's coach for a long time, and he gave me my first stripe and my gi, and I worked for him, and he let me work off my gi because I was a broke college kid at the time. Great dude, and he gave me my first stripe, and that was 3 years ago. So I went to Buffalo. I still did some jiu-jitsu here and there, but kind of hop schools and stuff like that. And then I came to Houston, and I just recently started doing gi again. I washed my gi. It was sweaty and stuff like that. I washed it, cleaned it off, and you can see in that picture, my first stripe is brown almost, and then my second stripe is white. It's funny.
Yeah. How does that relate, your wrestling background to jiu-jitsu?
It helps a ton. The pace of wrestling, obviously all jiu-jitsu starts on the feet, so there's some aspect of wrestling to it. But yeah, the pace of wrestling is just different from any other combat sport that I've found. It's 7 minutes nonstop in college. And then the ability to see technique, absorb technique, and things of that nature. In college wrestling, you have to do that or you're going to lose. And so just my ability to watch technique and kind of do it quickly is good.
So I'm guessing with your background, if you go up against another two-stripe white belt, it wouldn't really be necessarily fair.
Yeah.
It'd just be an instant takedown.
Yeah. I compete at blue belt, and the I think it's the IBJJF. If you're a college wrestler of any level and you compete as a white belt, they'll ban you for
you
a
have to
year.
start at a blue belt.
Yeah, you have to. And if you compete at a white belt and don't tell them, they'll ban you for a year.
So it's a good rule? You think that's a good rule to have?
There are some not great college wrestlers out there.
So maybe not for them.
Yeah, but yeah, there has to be something to that level because you can't have a kid who just walked onto the mat for the first time 6 months ago competing against a Division I guy or something that. Would literally not be fair at all.
Yeah. So wrestling, because I honestly don't understand it all that well, and I know in jiu-jitsu you're either going for the submission or control, and there's hey, you almost get a point, or you get a point, whatever. So is it mainly just control in wrestling, trying to keep your shoulders off the mat and control?
That is actually a perfect way to put it. I tell all my students wrestling is attaining control and then maintaining control. And so that means, I shoot in on a takedown, whatever, lift you, slam you. I have to hold you on your back. And if I hold you on your back, both your shoulder blades touch, the match instantly ends. That translates great to MMA because, okay, I can take you down and now I can hold you down and then beat on you. And for wrestling, position is everything. So when guys are trying to do jiu-jitsu moves, Coach Copley says all the time, all you have to do is understand the positions to not get in. So, for instance, like head all the way down, I'll have my head in their jaw, me punching them here. They can't really attempt any submissions or anything like that. So that level of keeping control has been great for translating over.
Yeah, and in MMA, at least, the UFC, you've seen at the beginning it was, jiu-jitsu, and then as the years have gone by, jiu-jitsu is still very important and everybody still trains at a high level. But like wrestling, that wrestling part became even more important, I guess, for the control.
Absolutely. Wrestlers kind of took over the UFC and dominated for the last 10 years. I think what's happening now, though, is if you don't have a well-rounded game, you're going to lose. Like, you just saw Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis representing H-Town.
Yeah.
Curtis Blades, he's definitely a multiple-dimensional fighter, but he telegraphed his wrestling takedown, got uppercutted, Ben Askren, got the knee. You have to have a complete game. You have to have stand-up to set up your takedowns minimum. You have to have, at least pretty high-level jiu-jitsu to not get submitted. And you see the pure submission guys, too, they try and fight for 4 minutes off their back, and they just get beat on the whole time because people understand position. You have to have a whole game, and I think that's why I'm so different from all the other people that I see. I started Taekwondo when I was 7 years old. I've been boxing on and off since I was like 18. Jiu-jitsu, the same thing. And so my game isn't there yet, and I know that, but it's definitely throughout the amateur and pro career. All these things are already set up, so it's just going to propel me forward.
How would you describe your style right now? I mean, trying to be well-rounded, or do you lean on the wrestling, or as well-rounded as possible?
So I try and make it like as well-rounded as possible. What I've been doing the last 6 weeks is a little different because I had a specific fight. I had a specific game plan. So I have been doing a little more wrestling. When I'm just training, though, Joel actually says I have like 3 phases. When I'm on the outside, I try and do some of my karate stuff. I have good kicks, and I'm able to keep people at range. When I'm on the inside, I kind of tuck my chin, try and box a little bit, and then if it gets any more inside than that, I'm going to try and take them down and smash on them.
Go down. Okay, so whenever you're preparing for a fight, and you were up until the freeze happened, everything got canceled, what does that look like as far as the amount of time training, your diet and nutrition, and everything else?
So everybody doesn't do this, but for me specifically, I kind of go into like savage mode, or like, whatever you would want to call it. I wake up at 5 a.m. 3 or 4 times a week, and I either lift or I go on a pretty long run. And then I go to practice, come home, stretch. Like, I try to avoid anything outside that's not to do with fighting or has to do with fighting. Cut out cereal, which is one of my favorite things. And so if I'm making all these sacrifices, I know when I'm in the fight, I'm not going to want to lose that fight because I've just sacrificed for 6 weeks straight. And that's why it kind of sucked, all this stuff getting called off. But I also understand that that was really hard on Texas. So, no anger at anybody for that.
Are you going to be scheduling something later this year as soon as possible, or when?
Coach Copley has already hit up a lot of people, a lot of people from promotions and organizations trying to get me something soon. So I'm probably gonna, eat some cereal this week or something. Yeah, for now. But get something booked soon, and I'm already in phenomenal shape. And like I talked about with Josh, I stay ready if I'm able to. If I can walk, I'm training. So if a fight comes up, I'm good to go for it anytime.
And that's at 145?
Yes, sir, 145. I'm actually grappling March 6th at 155, though, with combat sports coverage.
Are you going to be under there? I mean, walking in there probably like 150, or you're going to try and get it?
I walk around about 62, 63, so I'll cut a little bit of weight for that, but that's like a day's work for me, so it's not bad.
Okay, I had a friend that recently went through a weight loss competition. He lost. Okay, and he wrestled in high school.
That explains that he cheated.
Well, no, but like, how does a wrestler or someone usually cut weight? What does that entail?
So what I try and tell my wrestling students is that you need to do it smart, over time, and disciplined, right? The high school wrestling has rules that you can only lose like 1.5% of your body weight per week or something like that. And that's for a reason. It's to keep kids healthy.
Is that like honor system though? Like the coach is supposed to keep track of it? Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you mess it up, if you like weigh in at an official weigh-in and you're over that, you can get in trouble. But yeah, for the rest of it, it's honor system. But yeah, I try and tell my kids to do it over time, and I like to do what's called hydrating. So I'm chugging like a gallon or a gallon and a half of water until like 2 or 3 days before your body gets used to sweating and flushing all that, and then you cut water and it keeps sweating and flushing. But there are people who use trash bags, sauna every day and stuff like that, and that's kind of the old school way of doing it. And college wrestling and my mom being a dietitian has helped me figure out the right way to do those things and how to feel the best.
Okay. It seems like it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I always but everybody doesn't. That's kind of one of the things in MMA and UFC you see. It's like, well, should these guys be cutting that much weight? In the long term, probably not.
No, absolutely not. I know people who they're like 40 and they can't drink soda because their acid reflux is bad and things like that. So yeah, cutting weight the wrong way is really hard on your body, and flushing that water quickly is hard on your internal organs. So if you want to have a long career and even more importantly a long life, you need to do every aspect of your training the right way, right? You can't just go in, spar, and bang every day, be brain damaged, and you can't just cut weight bad, 4 times a year and then ruin your kidneys and liver. So I try and do as much as possible to make sure I'm this in the long run.
For that combat sports coverage event, it's in Tomball, right?
Yes, sir.
What do you go in with a plan? Because you don't really know. It's a bracket, right?
Yeah.
So, you just kind of got to be ready for anything. Can you see who else is competing, or are you able to?
Yeah, they tell you who's competing in advance. It's kind of different for me with combat sports, with fighting and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. With fights. With YouTube, everything's online. I can look them up, game plan them. For grappling events, yeah, it's like you said, I can see who's competing, but not really who I'm against. So maybe if I know they're like a leg locker, I'll come up with a game plan. But for the most part, I try and go out there and let it fly. All that stuff is for fun. I try and put on a great show in fights and in jiu-jitsu. But in jiu-jitsu, it's a little bit lower risk, so I can really go out there and do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, so Ryan with Third Coast Grappling, he'll put these events on, and they have another one coming up, and it looks stacked, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that he said is it's about the entertainment side of it. He said even if there's a guy, they're high level, and maybe they don't win, but they put on a good show and it's entertainment. He's like, absolutely, I'd love to have them back. Better than just two guys kind of avoiding each other, and it's like a no time limit match or something, kind of just forcing the action.
Yeah, I always say it's one of my favorite sayings that fortune favors the bold. So if you take a short notice fight that you're ready for, like say they hit me up 2 weeks before and I've been doing all this training, I've stayed ready, and it's something important, and you go for that, you're gonna, in my opinion, you're gonna do probably better than you would if you had a 6-week camp and you're stressing and things like that. So sometimes it's better to just go after it, and that's why when the combat sports guy hit me up, he was like, "Hey man, we loved you you were super entertaining. I want to have you back." And I was like, yeah, I'm game. I'll definitely run that. And it was supposed to be 2 weeks after my fight, so who knows if I'd have been banged up or not. But I was ready to get after it, and I really like him a lot. He puts on great entertainment, and his events are fun every time. I've gone and just watched.
Yeah,
so it's a good time.
Have you learned to just say yes to opportunities? That's what it seems like. You're like, yeah, I'm fighting MMA amateur debut. Yeah, I'll go grapple. Why not?
Yeah, every time that it's been short notice, big stage, come do it, I show up, and this has been my whole career, middle school and everything. I came back in the 7th grade from the broken arm. They're like, hey, would you want to wrestle at regionals? I was like, yeah. I qualified for sectionals my first year ever wrestling in Illinois, which is a good state. And, so my whole career, when I've just showed up and tried my best, I've always done really well, so why would I not continue doing that?
Mm-hmm. How do you get your cardio even at the collegiate wrestling level and where it is now? Is it mainly just more wrestling? Is there other stuff you add?
So a lot of running for your base level shape, and something that's really underrated is actually drilling. So there's technique speed in drilling, which is where I'm making sure my arm is in the right place, my hip movement is good, yada yada. But then there's competition drilling, which is where you're throwing fast. You're not connecting anything, but you're throwing fast, you're throwing hard, real shots, dipping, moving. And that type of drilling is honestly harder than live sometimes because, live I can take you down, I can control you, I can kind of control the space, get a little breather. If you're hard drilling with the right person, it's in your face the whole time, and that's like a level of shape that's something that's really slept on for getting your shape up.
Wow. What's the goal that you have for your career?
UFC champion, black belt in jiu-jitsu, and this is kind of my own goal, but I want to bring something new to the sport. I feel like people who really get remembered either accomplish a lot, they're the champ for 10 years or whatever, and then like the really special people, they bring a new aspect to the game. They bring something that people have never seen before, and I really want that to be me. And why would it not be me? I've been doing this since I was a little kid. I've got all my games not down pat, but I'm getting there, and I think once I'm at that level, I'll bring some really exciting stuff, some new stuff.
That's awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share today?
Thank you guys for having me on. This was a really good time. Anytime you guys want to do it again, let me know.
For sure. So yeah, shout out to War Training Center. Shout out to Joel, Texas Striking Academy. And then make sure you can check. I think they're even going to are they going to stream some of that combat sports coverage on?
Oh yeah. Hit me up on Instagram if you want tickets. It's Kyle Todrank 145. I can get you some tickets for that, or I can hook you up with some. So let me know.
Awesome. It's KHEA Radio 99.5.